All right, want to welcome everybody to the seventh episode of the Northeast Bass Fishing Podcast, presented by Thayer Marine. I'm Chris Adams, joined by my co-host Tommy Waltz again, and we've got another awesome guest tonight. Somebody who I don't know too well, but has always been in the circles in the Northeast bass fishing scene for decades. Kind of a old timer, a little bit of a legend. In our area, and if you follow you go way back and you look at the tournament results, you follow the Reynolds Trail or you follow the Cash and Rods tournament trail or any of those things, this guy's always at the top of the leaderboard, and somebody that we're really excited to have on. Welcome to the podcast, Frank Geiner.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, and also just another piece that I forgot to add to the intro, and I had mentioned to Tommy last week that I was going to do this. I think that Frank might have cost Tommy a boat a couple of years back there too. So there's a little bit of animosity on the podcast.
No,
awesome. No, that's because Tommy fishes smallmouth.
Right. No, that's because
Tiebreaker was lunker.
Yeah, that's because Bill Spence got seasick and we had to come in 2 hours early and back down to tie and not catch fish for 2 hours. But
what was the full story on that? Was it a tie? What was the?
It was tied, 45.41 apiece.
Yeah.
2 days. Yep. And lunker was the tiebreaker.
Was lunker.
Yeah. And we had a fish over 5.5.
Right. I mean, we actually had some big smallmouth that time. We probably weighed like some 4.6s and 4.7s, but obviously not going to stack up to tie largemouth for sure.
Well, now you could beat it, but
that was a rough ride home. I remember because Bill had just lost. My partner had just lost on a Ranger boat like a month earlier, 2 months earlier. He was fishing randomly as a non-boater. He fished with you the last day, Chris, actually, in a Toyota series. And he lost by like 4 ounces, and he had a fish die. So it was like an 8-ounce penalty or 4 ounce. He lost because of the dead fish. He lost the Ranger boat, and he lost the exact same Ranger boat when we tied you and lost the tiebreaker. So he lost 2 Ranger boats over the course of a couple of months because of a dead fish.
So what you're saying is you got the 2 guys that cost them a boat.
Yeah, on the same podcast.
Great.
I think Chris. I think he caught him with Chris the last day, so it wasn't Chris's fault.
He did, but I honestly, it haunts me to this day because Bill's a great guy and an awesome tournament director and just super nice. And I remember there's a video of it, and we're idling out for the last day of that Coastal Series. It was 2017, and I said to Bill, it was being recorded on camera, and I said, Bill, I'm just gonna grab like 15 pounds real quick, and then I'm gonna go for some bigger ones or whatever. And Bill, he goes, Chris, don't even pay attention to me. Just do your thing. Like, don't even worry about me in the back of the boat. And then at the end of the day, it's like, I'm catching all these fish off beds that are, 3 1/4, 3.5 pounds that aren't helping me. And in hindsight, I would have just spun around, let him go catch that one fish that I just threw back, and I would have done it. So it kind of bothers me that I cost Bill that tournament. But, he was the ultimate professional in terms of saying he knew what was on the line, and he said, you just do your thing and focus on what you got to do and don't worry about me. And that's the type of guy he is. So
yeah, not with Frankie though. He hates Frankie because I'm joking.
Hey, we're Facebook friends. You can't hate me.
So so Frank, just to back up a little bit, so you're in Connecticut, right? And you're kind of in finance, mortgage stuff. Like what's your full-time gig?
I'm a mortgage loan originator for North Point Bank.
Okay.
I've been doing that for, close to, I would say, probably over 15 years now. And prior to that, I used to work for recruiting companies, recruiting computer consultants for IBM and IBM contracts. So.
Yeah, gotcha. And so, as I mentioned in the intro, you've been around the game a long time, and you've seen it across the decades. How did you kind of get started in fishing and then tournament fishing? How'd that go?
Well, back when I was younger, I should say. It's funny. I don't. There's kind of a side story to it. I don't know how or why I love fishing so much because my dad hated it. Well, he didn't hate it, but it's like I used to like beg him to take me when I was little, and I have no idea why. I have no idea why I wanted to go. And years later, I'm Spanish. My parents are from Spain. My mom was from Cádiz, Spain, and my dad's from a section of Spain in Alicante. And it's funny because Geiner's kind of an unusual last name. Everybody either sees me as like Italian or something.
Italian, yeah, that's what I thought.
Geiner's
Hey,
actually,
Frankie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Geiner's actually Hiner. Okay, so years later, I'm fishing a tournament. I come home. I'll tell you how long ago, because I didn't have a cell phone. So I get home and I see a message on my answering machine. All right. So I hit this button, and a bunch of us had done some interviews for ESPN in regards to Brian Kerchal.
Yeah.
And so this guy's on my answer machine, and he's like, "Hey, I just saw your name scroll across the screen while I was watching the classic thing for Brian on ESPN. And I see that your name is Frank Geiner." He says, "My name's Frank Geiner also. And I wanted to know if you're a fellow Spaniard." So I was like, oh, I got to call the guy, right? So I call him. He leaves his number. I call him. Come to find out, this guy lived in Connecticut in like New Britain. And one time I had a registration problem with a car, and they were like, "Yeah, no, it's under your name." I was like, "No, I never owned that car." Turns out it was probably him. But come to find out, he's from Spain. His family was from Spain. Loves fishing. He moved to Lake Winnipesaukee, and at the time when I talked to him, this is like maybe late 90s, early 2000s. He was already like 70 years old, so I never kept in touch with him. But he moved and retired in New Hampshire on Lake Winnipesaukee, loves fishing. His whole family loves fishing. He's like, "Oh, we're probably like fifth cousins." He says, "My family's from this town." I think he said it was like Porto Salto or something on the Mediterranean. It's like a centuries old like fishing community or something he was explaining to me. So who knows? It's like, you don't know why you have a passion. Well, maybe that's why. It's
in your blood, right?
Yeah, we're probably like eighth cousins or something.
Yeah, like I say the same thing. Sometimes people ask me why I like fishing. I'm like, I have no idea. I really can't explain it. Like maybe it's something same. I'm part Norwegian. My great grandfather was he fished for like a living.
Right.
Went out in the ocean. Like maybe it's in my blood or something. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely something like that. I mean, so then once I figured out I love fishing, then I get into high school. And in ninth grade, no lie, met this guy. He was the janitor at the school. John, the janitor. And he's like, "Hey, listen, I got to take you to this tackle shop. You like to fish and this and that." Because, I went to a vocational technical school. So I went with a lot of kids that were like working on farms and stuff. So they were all into hunting and everything. And I wasn't into hunting, but I was loved to fish. And I met Hank Millard, who owned Hank's Tackle on Germantown Road in Danbury. And that was ninth grade. And that kind of started the ball rolling. I ended up working there for a few years, through high school and a little bit after high school, and fished my first Connecticut Fed tournament on Candlewood. I was 16. And the only reason I got in it was because back then, Connecticut had a rule where in order to qualify the state team for back then it was the Bass Federation. It wasn't, it was the BASS Federation. You could only send half of your club to the tournament to qualify. It was a 2-day tournament. So a lot of the club members, and Hank was one of them, would just grab another person and put, like a pseudo member into the club. So you'd have 20 guys in the club, 10 of them really didn't fish. That way the 10 that guys fish could always try and qualify for the state team. So anyways, he says, "Hey, you're a member of the club, just go fish." So I joined that, and I caught one fish on Candlewood. I remember that. It was like, God, I don't even know what year it was. 84? No, 83? No, earlier than that, maybe 82, 81. And so I caught one fish, and then after that, it was like, oh, game on, I'm hooked. That was it. And it was nice because I had access to all the best quality stuff back then. I'm talking Abu Garcia round 4,600 CBs with a thumb bar and custom wrapped Fenwicks because you couldn't get anything back then. I mean, I see what you get now, and it's ridiculous. Oh my God. What we started with, the little Humminbird flashers,
Yeah.
on the little red lights. And so, yeah, then I fished that tournament. Then I fished the second tournament with Lily, and I came in like fourth, and I actually like won some money. And I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. After that, it was like, I think I was 17 years old or 18 years old. And I sold my car and I bought a 350 Ranger. Had nothing to tow it with. I had the boat, and what I would do is people that had trucks and stuff that were going to the tournament that were non-boaters, I'd be like, listen, pay for your gas. That's how I ended up fishing like a full season with it. Yeah, and that's how it all started.
That's awesome. So then, like, so you're in the club there, and probably start making some state teams and whatnot. And you it looked like you transitioned to fishing a bunch of the Bass Opens and invitationals and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, let's not talk about the Bass Opens or the invitationals. My record on the Bass Opens and invitationals is horrific. I've had this conversation with Kota Kuriyama. He's a good friend of mine. And I'm like, dude, I have no idea why I do so bad. I'm just not geared for those types of tournaments, and I don't know why. Part of it has always been kind of a little, I think it really is a little confidence issue, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I tried to do it, and I got like a few under my belt, I probably got like 20 tournaments, and I've only cashed in like 2. And I just, every time I went down and did some of these, it was always worried about what was going on at home. Oh, I got to make the truck payment. Oh, I got to make a boat payment. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. If you go into those things with that mentality, never.
Yeah.
You're not going to do good. I do want to get back on it now, because now I'm at a point in life where it's like everything's paid for, and it's a little easier.
Less pressure. Yeah. No, it's very real. And like, someone of your caliber as an angler, like a lot of the success you've had, like it really speaks to kind of I think a lot of people that maybe haven't fished at that level or don't can't comprehend like just how much pressure that can be, especially if you got like stress at home and whatnot. It's very real, right? So yeah.
I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot. I don't know if it's a mindset. And the funny part is like what I think I excel at, because in order to be good and win tournaments, you need to be in tournaments that favor your good skill set. Like I love to flip. Okay, I would rather have 4 flipping sticks on the deck than anything else, or love to sight fish. I always have loved to sight fish. And I mean, I was sight fishing before people really kind of sight fish. I thought everybody did it. Come to find out, until I met Ed Cowan, that I didn't know. Like I was like one of the few people that were actually looking at them back then. Now everybody sight fishes.
Right.
But so those two things lend, to you doing good in tournaments. Like the 2 checks that I took. Well, no, actually one was on Champlain, but the other check was at Sandy Cooper. I mean, I'd never been to Sandy Cooper, but there was fish on beds, so I got a check. So, but yeah, if you can, you would think, just flipping it, you put yourself in a better position to win tournaments, especially a 1-day tournament. I mean, it might drop off on you on a multi-day tournament, because I that's the other thing is I tend to be a little more spot oriented, the way I grew up and the way that people taught me, rather than expanding areas. And I think that hurts me in multi-day tournaments.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another thing too. Like that, the whole factor of multiple days is, you burn stuff out on one day, and to have enough stuff, or to be able, like some of the best guys they don't even have other stuff. They're just able to do it on the fly, like Brian LaBelle's like that. I mean, he's got a lot of knowledge and like places, but man, like in terms of just being able to pull the plug and kind of just run and gun and put stuff together on the fly, like there's probably no one better. And that's hard. That's really hard to do when you had a great first day, and then like, you're a couple hours in the second day and things aren't going good. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges in tournament fishing, is pulling the plug on what you think was good or is good, and be able to just trash it and go do something else.
Yeah, guys, there's just guys that click that way,
Yeah.
Look at you with the Corona, and I'm doing Pellegrino because I didn't want to.
What's
All right.
Tommy got? Tommy's probably got some craft beer going.
Yeah, well,
No.
I saw that. I was like, what is that?
Something
That's a
to-
mule?
Little mule, yeah, auction.
Yeah,
So-
no, but, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you fished, I guess they were invitationals back then, right? And that was a different kind of field back then. That was, I think,
yeah.
majority of the pros fished the invitationals back then.
Oh, yeah, Rick Clun. Yeah, there's nothing about, basically, you put your money up, you were invited. There was no invitation whatsoever. You got
Right, I'm
invited
just
when you
saying
gave them
back
money.
then, and I know opens now still draw a lot of pros, but back then that was like, that's what the pros did. They fished all invitational. So were you
Yeah.
meeting a bunch of those pros back then, and some
Oh,
of those
yeah.
guys? I know Ed Cowan, and you said
Yeah.
Brian Kerchal, but what about other guys over the years? Have you-
Larry Nixon's a good friend of mine. We don't keep in touch as much as we used to, but I met Larry years ago when I was doing some work with Fischel Marine, and he came and did one of our, I set up like a show for them, and I met him then. And back in the day, we always used to run 150s. You couldn't go bigger than a 150 horsepower. And guys, if you remember those old Evinrudes and those old Johnsons, they used to have
Fast strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before the fast strike, actually before the fast strike, the GTs.
Okay, that's predating my knowledge, so I don't know.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, before the fast strikes were nice and thin looking, they were sleek. Well, what happened is those old GTs, I don't know if it was.
Oh, they were the white. Sometimes they were white, but they were
Yeah.
fat. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
white and gray.
Yeah.
So those things used to, guys would blow power heads all the time, right? So and it would cost you like $5,500 to put a new power head on it, right? So I was Nixon's telling me, we were talking about his deal with Evinrude. He says, I got a barn full of motors. I was like, what are you talking about? You got a barn full of motors. He's like, yeah, my deal with Evinrude is I get 3 Evinrudes a year. So he would get 3 150s. Okay. 1, he would run on his boat. And then 2, he's like, I sell them. I was like, well, oh, that's all right. That's cool to sell them. He's like, yeah, but I can never sell them because these guys aren't salesmen. They're out running around. They don't have time to be home. And back then it wasn't like you could post it on the internet. There was no internet.
Right.
So I was like, oh man, I could sell those motors for you. What do you want for them? He says, I want just get like $6,500 for it. I was like, $6,500. These guys are blowing power heads like crazy, and it's costing them $55. I put a whole new motor on for $65. Why wouldn't you do it? Right. So I had so many Larry Nixon motors running around here in Connecticut that all these guys would blow power, and you would blow one of those power heads. They all had those ring issues. Then they started putting the carbon guard and the ring loosener or whatever that crap was that they put in the fuel. And so a lot of the repowered motors around here are all from Larry Nixon. And then I sold a couple of boats for them, being that I worked at the marina and stuff. And I mean, I don't know if you remember this, the old days in the invitationals, you won a boat when you won an invitational. And how we got a lot of boats up here was these pros would win a boat, and Ray Scott would pat you on the back and say, good job, take a couple of pictures with you, and then go, the boat's there, you got to get it out of here tonight. They're like, how the hell am I going to get it out of here? So guys would go to these things, and you could buy a brand new Ranger for like $15,000 because they had to get rid of it. They couldn't tow it home. They didn't have a second vehicle, Then they started giving away certificates.
Yeah.
And I sold a couple of those certificates for the guys. And yeah, that's how I got connected with them.
So it was kind of like the Wild Wild West back then. Like, so you talked about I love it. I wish that with how crazy things are today, I wish the sport would go back to like 18 footers and 150s and like 2D sonar. And
oh God, you sound like.
Yeah, I love it. And like, I love the history of it. And, I remember I love those old videos on YouTube, of Bob Cobb at 1,000 Islands, and you'd have like Clark Wendlandt running to Henderson Harbor in a 18 footer with a 150, just like
Oh, yeah.
launching off waves and
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones, if you go the old Dusty Pines video. Remember that fisherman, Dusty Pines?
Remember the name, yeah. Yeah.
He won in Lake of the Isles fishing a frog.
Yeah.
On those scum balls, they called them, or puff balls or whatever they were. That was great, because that was like pretty amazing camera work back then. Now,
Yeah.
I mean,
Remember
MLF changed the game when it came to, actually televising fishing. It's a good format for that, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like people have caught on with the format.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember that one tournament with Rick Lilligard.
Oh God, yeah.
Up near Wolf Island, and
Yep.
that was pretty cool footage too.
I was at that tournament.
Imagine that, like that was all largemouth, I think, that he won with, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He pulled up to a little point at Wolf Island, and it's just like, those are the days, man, when you could pull up to a weed point and catch a billion of them.
Yeah.
He didn't even know what he had.
So you've been fishing tournaments, big tournaments in the Northeast for a long time. I mean, so you've seen not just kind of the shift with anglers and fishing and technology, but also these bodies of water.
Oh yeah.
Like, how long have you been fishing like Champlain or Thousand Islands, and how much has it changed really for you tournament fishing wise?
It's funny. There was a guy in Connecticut that used to write articles for magazines. His name was, I think it was Frank McCain. And it's funny because he did an article, and he actually, we talked about like what's going on up there. And I saw the cycle like on Thousand Islands in Lake Ontario, from when the zebra mussels came and then the gobies came, and what it did and how it changed. And it's funny because I remember back in those invitationals, I remember the one where I was at the tournament where Clun ran all the way to like Henderson and, was catching them on a spinnerbait. And I mean, if you see his average weights, they were like nothing.
Right. No, I mean, 15, 16 pounds was a good bag of smallies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was a phenomenal bag of fish. I mean, you used to go out in the lake it was like, you wanted to get a check, you went out in the lake and you caught 13 pounds of smallmouth, and you tried to catch largemouth when you came in.
Right.
And that was the deal. 13-pound bags of smallmouth. Now it's like crazy. 13 pounds is 2 fish.
So would you say that tournament fishing is better, catching wise, or like you said before, you catch a zillion fish before? Was it easier to get a bite before, less pressure, or how have you seen things kind of evolve and change overall, would you say?
I think it got better because of a few things. I think management of the sport and the species is better. It's better understood. The amount of information that you have available to yourself now is huge. And the guys know how to utilize electronics a lot better. I mean,
right.
Just the advancement of electronics. I mean, look at all the active target stuff now and live imaging. It's ridiculous. So where I've seen certain lakes, I've seen cycles, and I think that's the most prevalent thing, is like you'll see a down cycle in a lake, then all of a sudden 5 years later, it's phenomenal again. So I think if you stay in the game long enough, you see those, ups and downs. So whether it's easier to catch them now, I think, I don't know, that's a hard question. I don't think they're easier to catch now. I just think your knowledge base is so much better that you got more guys that can catch them. You know what I mean? Back then, everything was, kept pretty secretive. If you had something that was working for you, guys weren't posting pictures on the internet. I mean, they weren't talking about it.
Right.
They didn't have podcasts.
like you were telling me the other night too, you were using back in the day, you were using Gatorade bottles to mark fish, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Tying them to weeds.
Yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. You had nothing else. I mean, do you guys even have a buoy marker in your boat?
No, I found a buoy marker the other night. I was like,
right?
I still got one of these.
That's still a useful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always have 1 or 2 in my boat.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris is old school though. Chris wants the 150 and the 18-foot.
I do. I want it back. Yeah. I want it back, but
he wants to spear every wave on Champlain.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Not for nothing, but man, and these boats have come a long way.
Yeah.
Those, oh man, those Rangers, they were built nice, but ow, my neck hurts just thinking about it.
Yeah, they're a little
Just-
better now. A little better now.
Oh, much better. Much
Yeah, I
better.
mean, let's talk. So you talked a little bit about kind of like the transition of fisheries, and you know, we obviously talked about Thousand Islands. They used to be like 14, 15 pounds was a big bag. I was talking to Tom Victor Jr. at a tournament, I think back in June, and we were, you know, reminiscing about the old days. And obviously he's like 10, 15 years older than I am, and was into it, you know, really young, given his dad and all that. And he said that, and I'm sure you would remember this, Frank, is he said like way back in the day down in Ticonderoga, he said it was super muddy and there was no grass. And he's like, if you found any grass, like a little size of your table, you know, it was loaded. And like the weights, he's like, we would catch 18 pounds for 6 fish, and everybody thought we were like the heroes, you know, 3-pound average. So like, was it really that tough back then?
I don't think it was tough. I think it was just, I mean, the fishing I thought was better.
Lower weights though, or is that
lower weight? You catch more fish. What's better? 25-pound bags, and you get 8 bites, or you catch 40 fish and, you know, you're topping out at 18. Yeah, 18 or 19. You know, it depends. I guess it's all relative on how you look at it. But yeah, I mean, when I started going down there, yeah, the water was definitely weird color down there. And I think a lot of people stayed away from Thai because of that. I mean, you think about the Northeast. These guys all want, you know, they clear water, they get spooked when they see mud.
Yeah.
Now you go to Louisiana, and if it's not mud, they get spooked if they see it clear. They're like, oh my God, I can see the bottom in like 10 feet of water. What do I do? Yeah. So, you know, I guess regionally, everybody has their issues with water clarity. But yeah, I remember Thai being, it was a different kind of, it wasn't muddy. It was, I would say, chalky, because you'd still have visibility, but you wouldn't like want to swim in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then when the milfoil, you know, really got good, man, the schools of fish down in Thai.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. That Gatorade bottle story I was telling you, Eddie Cowan and I used to fish team tournaments. We used to fish in Foxwoods back in the day. And that one story is, you know, I'm just pre-fishing. He's coming up, and he wasn't there. And I'm just going down the grass mat, flipping for like hours. No bites, nothing. All of a sudden, doom. Set the hook, catch one. It's about 3. Flip right back in the same, like almost the same hole. Doom. So I don't set the hook, flip around a little bit. Doom, 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 doom. It's like, oh, great. There's a school of fish here. And I had no way of marking it. It was pre-GPS. And I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? I had a Gatorade bottle, filled it up with a little bit of water, tied some 20-pound mono, because that's what I had. There was no braid. Or there was braid. We didn't use it. It was probably Dacron back then or whatever it was. And nobody used it. Tied it to a big clump of grass and like hoped. In this spot, I'll even tell you where it was, because a weed doesn't even exist there anymore. You go south on Thai where it narrows, and you have the marina there.
Yeah.
Just past that, way out in the middle, there's a red buoy. Okay. And if you follow that red buoy, it's out in the middle, and everybody cuts the buoy short. So I was like, Eddie, it's out here somewhere. I mean, it was like 6-7 feet of water.
That's awesome.
And he's like, I'm like trying to idle around looking for it. It's still kind of dark in the morning. And he's like, well, how did you mark it? And I told him the whole bottle thing. He's like, oh man, because boats are running by us on both sides. And he's like, oh, somebody ran it over. They're never going to find it. I was like, well, let's just poke around here. We're fishing around until everything calms down, and I'm not getting bit. And all of a sudden, he's like, he looks in the distance. He goes, is that a bottle out there? I was like, is that your bottle? I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. And as I'm approaching it, he takes his flipping stick, just takes like lobs a long cast towards the bottle. The jig hit the water, and he's like, oh, I got one. I was like, yep, that's the bottle. And so we went over there, and like 8 flips later, we had a limit. It was just crazy how they would like pile up, and you could literally catch like 20 fish in like no time.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I remember. I think I might have told this story on one of the other episodes, but I feel lucky to have seen it growing up as a kid, and I was fishing a Wednesday night tournament, midweek tournament with my dad, and it wasn't going too great. We had like maybe 35 minutes left in the tournament. Running back to Ty, the Larrabee's on the Vermont side, and he's like, Chris, I got one other spot I kind of wanted to check. So we pull in there, and no exaggeration, he caught a fish on every flip for 25 minutes, and all I did was get the net, grab the fish, put it in the live well, do the culling. Like I never even grabbed my rod, and he was just every single flip.
Yep.
I don't even know. He probably caught 30 fish, and then we ran in, and I think we ended up winning or coming in second or whatever. And it was just amazing. And that school was, I mean, that little, huge grass bed, but the school was only in, a 20 by, maybe 20 yard stretch. And that was it, like just stacked. And I'm just fortunate that I saw that when I was a kid, because obviously the weights are still really good and it's a great fishery, but man, you don't see that anymore.
No, you don't. And I don't really know what happened. Well, the milfoil, that got ruined. It's funny that you mentioned Tommy, because I saw him this weekend. I hadn't talked to him in a while, and we were talking about that. And he says he remembers like when the Hurricane Irene came through, kind of wrecked everything down there. Flooded everything. Yeah, flooded everything, and then just wrecked the grass. And then you started getting that Christmas tree grass, I used to call it. I don't know. I don't even know what it is, but that dark looking, thick stuff. And I've guys tell me to catch fish out of it. I don't. Very rarely have I. And but I mean, I remember there was a time when if you did find that, because it wasn't very prevalent, you get really big ones off of it for whatever reason. But now that it's all over the place, you can never. Can't catch them.
I mean, I mean, like even like up to like 2010 or 11, 12ish, you would have grass from the inside all the way out to the red can at Kirby Point, milfoil matted over for a mile, and now you can't find a stitch of grass on that thing.
I fished a tournament in Thai this spring, opening weekend. I saw you there, Frankie, actually. And I was fishing further up, and I was like, I'm going to save myself, an hour and a half and run some old history. I hadn't checked Thai in a long time. And I'm like, I have this good grass, but there wasn't any grass where I ran down. My caller was like, "So there's grass here?" I was like, "There used to be. It's all gone, like none."
Yeah, it's all gone. It's sad. And then once Thai became pretty popular, see, because there's been a change on Champlain too. Is if you notice, like the smallmouth fishing got a lot better. Smallmouth, you can actually win with smallmouth now.
Yeah,
you couldn't win before. You needed a mixed bag. So when Ty was fishing really good, guys run down. And I mean, think about it. I know it's only a 5-fish limit, but you got a 5-fish limit and you got 30 guys doing it week in and week out. And all of a sudden, they ain't taking anything back that's 2 pounds. Everything that's going out of there is, your best 5. So, I mean, those guys, those fish ain't coming back from Plattsburgh.
No.
So, like a lake that you fit, a lake like you fish like Candlewood, since it's smaller, do you think that's not as big of an issue because you're not taking them 70 miles away? Do you think?
It's got better. But you see now I've seen something change on Candlewood too. And it's funny, it didn't dawn on me until I had a conversation with a guy we had a biologist come from BASS one time to one of our banquets at the end of the year. I think it was when I was fishing New York Fed, and I had a chat with him because he documented something that was really interesting and how like the spotted bass populations exploded down south, and what they attributed it to was they had severe droughts for like a couple of years, which killed a lot of the grass. Okay, which the spots are very aggressive. So when their spawning habitat became better, so when they got a hold a deeper hold and pushed some of the largemouth out, and were able to spawn more freely. Then all of a sudden, lakes where guys were catching 2-pound spots were now catching 5-pound spots because they'd have really good year classes of spawn.
Yeah.
And then when the rains came back and all of a sudden the lakes filled up to normal and the grass started coming back, then the largemouth started coming back. So I've seen kind of that happen on Candlewood over the course of probably like 15 or more years. But you got to understand the growing season up here is different than down south. What they saw happen in 5 years takes 15 up here.
Yeah.
And like Candlewood, it's always been, you got $1 million homes. They don't want weeds near their dock or whatever. So they started with the drawdowns. And we had a couple of years of really, big drawdowns and really cold winters, which killed the milfoil. And all of a sudden the milfoil is gone and guys couldn't, flipping grass and catching largemouth. And all of a sudden the smallmouth just like exploded. Now, you look at the weights in the spring. I mean, huge bags of smallmouth, huge. And you gotta fish for smallmouth to win. But now I'm starting to see it go back now. You're catching a lot more largemouth. Last tournament, last weekend, I think top 3 finishes were 5 fish limits over 20 in all largemouth.
Largies.
Yeah. So I think it's starting to swing back the other way because we've had 2 or 3 years of pretty good grass. Warm winters, and so the drawdown doesn't affect it as much, or they haven't drawn down that much. So I think it's taken, 7 or 8 years for the largemouth to bounce back.
Yeah, I've been like praying for a 2, 3, 4 year stretch where we have some high water springs, because we haven't had, it's always low in the fall, low in the spring, and I'm not a biologist obviously, and like whatever, but my own theory on it is, man, you get those high water springs and it's good for that largemouth spawn.
Absolutely.
More area, and they can push back further, and and it just helps the spawn. But
yeah,
you talk to biologists around here, and their survey studies, their electroshocking studies in Champlain, they say that it's as good, if not better than ever. But it's like my kind of argument is that they're doing those at night. They're doing them in their shocking devices only go down to whatever 5-7 feet, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So they're doing it at night in optimal habitat with fish that are up feeding at night. So it's always going to be optimal results. Now, what's going on, like 20, 30 yards out in 10, 12 feet of water, or 100 yards out, whatever it is, like, is it really the same population that it used to be? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of that shocking that they did on the Hudson too, because they would shock in the fall in the creeks, because that's the only way you're going to reach any of those fish. They did studies on them, and they would swear there was no smallmouth in the Hudson. It's because you're shocking, like you said, 5 feet of water. So you're not even getting close to a smallmouth.
Yeah.
But I've seen the Hudson take a crazy swing too.
Has it ever swung up?
Well, I mean, you know what? The fishing's gotten better.
Yeah.
But I just think people, down south, they don't care about that 15-inch limit. You got these, well, first off, you got a different species of fish down there. I fished a couple of these CPR tournaments, these, photograph release things during the pandemic, because there was like no tournaments to fish. And, I mean, these ding dongs are killing you down south because you're competing against guys in Florida. For me to have over a 20-inch average, I'm pretty close to high 5s to 6-pound largemouth. They're catching 24-inch largemouth down there that aren't even going 4 pounds. It's like, forget it. It's like inches. You get killed all the time. So our goal, when Eddie and I fished a couple of them, is just like trying to get over 20-inch, trying to do a 20-inch average. And when you think about it, when you start measuring these things, you'd be surprised what you really catch. These guys tell you, oh yeah, we catch 23-inch smallmouth all the time. Bullshit. They don't catch any of that. This big, I weighed a 5'7" smallmouth out of Candlewood. The thing was just under 22 inches.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah. No, you look at like the Lake Champlain International, which is just like a weekend tournament and they measure the length of every fish, and you'll see all those smallmouth are, it doesn't matter if they're 4 pounds or 5 pounds, they're all between 20 and 21 inches. Like you rarely see a 22-inch smallmouth.
Yeah, no, these guys said, oh, I caught a smallmouth 24 inches. No, you didn't. Yeah. It's just like you didn't catch a 10.
Yeah.
So are you, Frank, how'd you meet Ed? And are you guys, I know you guys would do a lot of team stuff together. Are you still doing
Yeah.
that? Or, yeah. No,
So,
he fished a classic, didn't he?
he fished several classics.
Okay.
He fished
Yeah.
2. He won the Federation Nationals twice. He's been to several of them. Ed's a really, he could have been one of these people that had a career on the elites or the top 100s back then. He was that quality of fisherman. He still is. He's still a good fisherman, but
Like, was it mental or physical
No.
or both? Or
no, it's financial. Listen, if you want a good way to go broke, go try and, fish the elite series.
yeah. No, I mean, like in terms of his strength, like what made him that that good?
I don't know. He's just like one of those guys that's got it,
Yeah.
And again, he 2 of his best things is like he keeps a flipping stick in his hand, and he was sight fishing before anybody was sight fishing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how I met Eddie was I used to be part of Watershed Bassmasters in New York. You see, I'm in Danbury, so I'm on the border
On the border, yeah.
of New York. So we had Connecticut clubs and the New York clubs, and I kind of gravitated to New York because of the places they went. Connecticut, everybody was hung up on Candle and Lily and Zor, and it's like, all right, well, I want other things to do. And when you fish New York and New York Federation, you're fishing Lake George, you're fishing Champlain, you're fishing Cayuga. So when I won Angler of the Year twice in New York, I was pretty proud of that, because you're fishing complex bodies of water against guys that live there, So I felt like, wow, that's a good challenge. That's something to do. And I was actually pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, New York still draws. I mean, I think they were 90 boats for the Champlain one.
Yeah, but back to fishing with Eddie, it's like, so we were in Watershed Bassmasters together, and I knew Ed, didn't know Ed, but I think we kind of met fishing a tournament on Greenwood, and I grew up with a lot of guys like Hank Ballard, Doug Iroquez, Rich Zaleski's a mentor of mine. And these guys are all 1/8 ounce fishing a grub, scooting it across the bottom with 6-pound test. And I was like, man, I do it. But why can't you just run around and throw a spinnerbait, or run around and flip? And so I had more of a tournament mentality even back then. I don't know why, I just did. That's maybe I'm a little too amped up to, creep a grub along. But so I'm fishing a club tournament on Greenwood, and Eddie sees me running around, and he's like, and it was actually, I think it was a spring tournament, because I'm sight fishing, and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, there's fish on beds everywhere. So what are you talking about? He's like, shh, don't tell anybody. Nobody does that. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, they're smallmouth. Everybody can see them. He's like, no, nobody sees them. He's like, you want to fish a couple of team tournaments with me? I was like, yeah, sure. So we started fishing team tournaments, and, it kind of started clicking for me once I met Ed, because we were more of I wanted to be a power fisherman. I just didn't know how to do it. Sounds crazy, but he made it all right for me to do that, but still I had the background where if you had to sit down on a spot for 5 hours and throw a tiny little something, I could still do it. But so we started fishing tournaments together, and, we traveled to, fishing a few of the invitationals and stuff. And yeah, we've been friends ever since. Yeah.
That's awesome. I just had to mute it for a second. My dog had a hairball in his throat, and he was making all sorts of noise. So
that's okay. I got my cat. He's going in and out. He keeps shutting the door on himself, and I got to let him out.
So now just thinking about all the stories. So you remember you knew Darren Schwenkbeck pretty good, right?
Schwankbeck? Yeah.
Yeah. So me and
Shipwreck
Darren,
Schwank.
yeah, me and Darren used to fish a lot together, and we're still good buddies and talk quite a bit. And he'd always talk about Frankie Geiner this, Frankie Geiner that, and I had a lot of respect for you. So
Yeah. Next time you see him, when you talk to him, call him Napa.
Napa, I haven't heard that
remember.
one. What's that?
Yeah, well, because he was when he was fishing the elites, he was out in we're a bunch of friends with like Chris Loftus and stuff, and the wives that they had, and Darren knew all of us and from New York Fed days, and we all went like around Christmas time. We all did wine tours up like in Canandaigua. We all met up there, and I don't know. We went to one winery, and after about 3 wineries, you're blasted, anyways. So we got a school bus or a bus that was like taking us around. So I'm standing next to Darren, and Darren's like, "There's these 2 girls or something in there," and I guess he was trying to impress me. He's like, "Well, last week when I was at Napa Valley," and I call him. It's like, "Oh, hey Napa, how you doing?"
I love it. Yeah.
Because he was out there for the Elite Series fishing Clear Lake or something, and
Yeah.
it was just funny. It was just it stuck. I actually even what I'm going to show you right now. Hold on, let me get my phone out here, and we're gonna go to my contacts, and we're gonna go to
Napa.
Yeah, there. Where is he here? There he is. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, you can't. It's too bright. Yeah, it says Darren Napa.
Darren Napa.
Napa.
I remember that. He's a hell of a fisherman, and you talk about like getting in the boat with Ed, and maybe fishing a little bit different or wanting to fish a certain way, and you learn from him and all that. And like, man, some of I fished a bunch of tournaments and just fun practice days with Darren. Like, he would do stuff that like you talk as anglers, sometimes you get set in your little box of what you like to do and how you fish, and like he would do stuff when we were fishing that was so off the wall and so something I would never even think of doing, and he would catch big fish.
Yeah.
Just opens your eyes to what's out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what was good about him too is he had a really easygoing attitude. Like, nothing bothered him when he was there. He was there to fish. He didn't care about paying bills or doing this or going home or worrying about, hey, do I have to make money?
If you ask him that, I'd probably disagree, but
I don't know, because when I saw him, it was just like he always had that. To me, he always had that, like, wow, didn't worry about anything.
I think you have to have a little bit of that, especially like a guy like him that was kind of, coming up through the ranks and
absolutely
and not established yet. Like, you probably got to have a little bit of that. Like, hey, I'm just out here trying to catch fish and nothing else matters,
I mean, listen, when Eddie had, like, we talking about, like, he could have had I think a really good career doing this, and he would have been a really successful tournament fisherman. I don't know how good he would have been on the marketing side. He's a good guy. You really need to, you either need to be able to sell product or you need to win everything.
Yeah.
You can't, there's very few guys that can do both. Now there's a few guys that do both well. But back then it was like, you were able to sell stuff or you were, you won everything. And, he chose family. And I respect that. He knew. He did the numbers. He was like, man, this is crazy. I'm gonna run around the country to kill myself to try and make $35,000 this year.
Yeah.
I can do that working, 9 to 5. And I'm secure. I know it's going to happen every year or every week.
And you can still fish tournaments on the side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean,
it's kind of interesting. The last 2 AAA events up here. So the Toyota on Champlain, that Steve Estes one, we had him on last week, and we kind of asked him that question: would you want to fish professionally? He was like, no, like, I'm good. Like, I got a good job. I want to do it around my family. And then I just saw the guy that won the Open on Oneida.
Bill Perkins.
Bill Perkins.
I fished with him. He was my non-boater in one of the Opens, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at Oneida, I believe.
There we go. And now he's won. He probably used your spots to win this weekend.
No, I doubt that.
I got one for you, Frank. 2011, coast it was Everstart series in Champlain. My co-angler the final day was Jacob Wheeler.
Really?
Yep. It was really funny. I tell the story all the time. I made a little bit of a run. It was pouring rain, nasty, and we kind of get to where we're gonna fish and able to like talk, actually hear each other and stuff. And I said, he was young. I was probably 23 at the time or 22 or something. And I think he was like 18, 19. And he said, or I said to him, hey, like, are you still in school? He goes, no. I go, well, are you like, do you work? He goes, no, I don't work. And I'm like, well, what do you do? And he's like, I fish. And I was like, who's this guy? And I didn't even know who he was. And then I got home from that tournament like 2 weeks later, and I got the FLW magazine in the mail, and I didn't even realize he had won the All-American.
Yep.
Like the rest was history. And his mechanics, I will say, like his mechanics, it was hard he was my non-boater. It was a sight fishing tournament, so it was hard to like see the mental side and decisions, but his mechanics were
phenomenal.
The best
right?
I've ever seen, like the best I've ever seen,
Yeah.
And it's no surprise that he's doing what he's doing now.
Yeah, it's funny because I get that question a lot of times. People ask me, it was like, well, I'm fishing out of the back of the boat. Do you have any secrets or anything? And the one thing you can tell everybody that's a non-boater is make sure your mechanics are better than everybody else. Because there's no secret baits. There's no secret this or that. I mean, let's face it.
Not many secrets anymore. That's for sure.
No. Yeah, no. But if you can outcast or make better casts and from awkward angles, because that's what you need to do to be a non-boater. That's your best thing. Get it out of your head. And the other thing when back when I was doing some shows and stuff, doing seminars and things, they always, what's the best color? That was like, that has to be like the number one freaking question. And I was like, oh, well, this is all you need to know. 3: light, dark, and obnoxious.
Yeah.
And they're like, huh?
Good way to put it.
Like, yeah, whatever you're comfortable with, that's what you buy. You like black or black grape? Oh, there you go. There's your dark color. If you like smoke or, watermelon, that's your light color. And you always have to have obnoxious. You have to have like bubble gums and methylates and stuff.
Yep.
Just stick to that. Make it simple. I mean, it's not that hard. I still make it hard on myself, thinking I'm off by like a little bit or something. No, you're not.
So we're this is great, and we're just kind of cooking through the clock here. But I don't know. You want to jump in? We usually do 10 rapid fire questions with all of our guests. And I think
I don't know how rapid they don't end up being rapid. They usually turn into 10 long questions.
I know they do.
Do I need to get like a notebook or something?
No. This is
all
usually
right.
Good. Usually good. It usually opens up some good conversation. So let's just let it rip.
Right.
So, question 1: the bait that you think you've weighed the most fish on in a tournament over the years. Jig.
Yeah, jig. Without a doubt.
Any details on that jig? Size, color? No, just jig.
I flip 9 out of 10 times. I flip pretty much a 3/4 ounce jig, mop style jig. And shameless plug is going to be actually Herbie Reed, who owns Lunker City, developed Sluggo. I mean, he's a buddy of mine, and he actually made a new jig just recently, Beefus. And I've been buying his heads and tying them myself.
Yeah.
And because I like a bigger skirt.
Yeah.
And his head style is really good, especially flipping hard structure.
So you say mop style jig for flipping too. So you're using that living rubber?
Yeah.
Really?
I still got some of the old school living rubber left, but even just the heavy round rubber.
You think that's more bites or bigger fish or?
No, I don't trim it up. I leave it long and ugly. I'm serious.
Okay.
It's just, I don't know. I have no idea. I think it pushes a lot of water. I've caught fish, clear water with it. Who actually turned me onto it was years ago as I drew Chris Bumgardner down on Hartwell for an invitational. And he was flipping a mop jig with a Zoom super chunk, and that's the first time I'd ever seen a super chunk.
I think it was big in the Carolinas because Davey Height was a big mop jig guy.
Yeah, straight brown with a green pumpkin super chunk.
Yeah.
That was
so,
it.
So you're flipping a mop jig up here then.
Oh yeah.
And now Chris asked you about trimming up, but is that trailer hanging down below that mop jig, or it's inside of it? That's what I've always.
I start sliding it on the hook, okay, until it tears up a couple of times, and then I hang it.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I'll flip back and forth because more so than the jig itself and the technique I've seen in color rather, profile makes a difference sometimes.
Okay.
And when you hang it, it's a longer, bigger bait. And sometimes they like that better. And sometimes when you thread it on, it's more of a puff compact bait. It pushes a little bit more water. And sometimes they eat that better. Right? It's just trial and error, something simple like that.
Just one thing, Tommy, you may have these in your questions, so I don't want to step on your toes, but I do want to talk a little bit after. I think you have your own like kind of little jig thing going, business. I don't even know how to say it, but Haka something.
Taka Rocco.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit after.
All right.
Go ahead, Tommy.
All right, next question. I told you this wouldn't be that quick because we're gonna get into it. So that was the jig is your most fish you've caught in tournaments on a jig. What about? It's probably the same answer. My guess. What's your big fish bait in tournaments?
Yeah, well, jig.
Jig. So just jig, pretty much.
Jig. And well, I will throw another one in there. Big fat flipping tube.
Old school flipping tube.
Dude, yeah. One more person tells me creature bait. Drives me nuts.
How do you rig a tube up?
Usually on a 4.0 or 5.0 heavy duty offset hook with like a super line. And just, flipping it on like a 1/2 ounce weight.
Pretty standard. Okay. So third question, best angler you've ever shared a boat with?
Best angler I've ever shared a boat with. Couple of people. Well, Nixon, number one, because I have fished with Nixon. By far, he's probably the most accomplished and the best. And also, really, I got to say Eddie. To be honest with you, Ed Cowan, my current tournament partner, JJ Zolkowski, he's phenomenal too. He's another one of those guys that's like just gets it. So,
okay. Yeah. So 3-way tie basically. All right.
Yeah.
Next question. Biggest change you've seen in tournament fishing over the years?
Electronics.
Is that good or bad?
Because I think it's good.
Okay.
I think it's good. Here's the thing. All those changes, like you see, like the A-rig that everybody hates and the electronics that everybody hates now, that, it's making it too easy. It's not making it too easy. There's still people that do it better than you.
I'm surprised you're saying that it's better, kind of given the style of fisherman you are and the decades you fished from. I'm a little shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it's all that I think you got to look back to see where you're going forward sometimes, but yeah, that stuff is amazing.
Yeah,
making it so much better. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. Flipping down a tie, right? I've got my active target on all the time now. You think it wouldn't be an advantage? Okay, I'm only in 3 foot of water, 4 foot of water. But I'm flipping along and all of a sudden there's a log out in front of me that most people, 90% of people probably run over and never take a cast to. How many times are you going to do that before you realize, oh, wow, that 1 or 2 extra fish that I caught made a difference?
Yeah.
And that's it. These guys that hate all this stuff, like hate the A-rigs and hate this. No, because you can give the A-rig to 10 guys and 2 guys are going to really excel at it. It's not the A-rig. It's the guy.
Yeah.
Right.
The user. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. So your first bass boat you said was when you're 18 years old, you bought your first bass boat?
Yep.
So
350 Ranger.
So you're 55 now, right?
Oh shit. Yeah.
So over the last almost 40 years, how many bass boats have you owned? That's my question.
You really want me to start?
I want to know.
Okay. Now you got to understand that I had a couple of deals with Skeeter and Nitro.
I'm not,
Okay.
there's no shame here. We're not trying to
Okay.
make you feel bad. This is awesome, actually. The more boats, the better. Trust me.
1, 2, 3 Rangers, 2 Tritons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Skeeters. 3 or 4 Nitros. Yeah, so whatever that adds up to.
14, roughly.
Something like
14,
that. Yeah.
14 over 37 years.
Not
I
bad.
mean,
Yeah, and one 3. And I'm not counting the ones that I took on trades
yeah.
that I owned briefly for, because back then I was selling the boats and flipping them every year.
So that's a lot of boats. Looking back, is there like a boat that you're like, not necessarily like the best boat, but is there a boat like, oh, I love that boat? You know what I mean? Like that you can think of, or are they just inanimate objects to you, or is there one out there that you're like, I mean, I wish I could buy that boat back?
Yeah, there's none of them that I would be like every time. They just, again, they get better and better.
Okay.
But some of the deck styles, like I've never owned one, a Falcon. JJ's got a Falcon. That thing is, oh my God, you stand in it and it's like huge. And then I get into, like, Eddie still runs a 186 Triton that he had, that Triton gave him when he won the second national. And I don't even know what year it is. And that's 18.6 or 18.9. And I'm standing in it. I'm going, oh man, this thing's tiny, but still a foot bigger than the Rangers we used to run,
Right.
the 350s. They were all 17.10. So yeah, I don't know. There's not one that stands out that goes, man, I really love the boat. But yeah, I like them all. Really
All right.
did. It's just
All right.
cool. They're just cool to have.
They are cool. All right, next question. This is an easier one. Pretty straightforward. Right. Braid or Fluoro?
Fluoro.
I'm kind of surprised by that one, really.
Yeah, no.
Just because there's more things to use it for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Braid to me is pretty limiting.
Now
people are gonna say that.
Now you're a big flipping guy. Do you primarily flip a Fluoro then, or?
Yeah, I've most of the time 20 or 25 pound Fluoro. The only time I use braid right now, frogging. I do use braid on a spinner rod a lot.
Interesting. Actually, me and Chris kind of had this conversation a couple weeks ago. I used to flip a lot more with braid, and I've gone to Fluoro more recently, unless I'm using really heavy stuff. But like 3/4 and under, I've been using Fluoro more, and I think I get more bite.
Yeah, throw braid around zebra mussel, see what happens. I don't care if it's 65 pound test, it's gone. Yeah. Fluoro is way more. So when you start fishing the Hudson and you start fishing, some of the hard structure on Champlain, and you're around zebra mussels, you're much better off with the Fluoro. All right.
Name a technique you can't stand, like you'd rather just not ever even try, even if people are catching fish on it.
Oh man, spy baiting.
Okay.
I fall asleep.
Yeah. Good. I hope people hate that one. I hope a lot of people.
I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I catch fish doing it, and I do it. But oh man, I wish they'd eat a spinnerbait or something.
Yeah, I get you're saying. I get you're saying. I'd much rather hook one on a spinnerbait than a spy bait. It's a lot less strong.
Oh yeah.
Than a spy bait. All right. So when you're practicing pre-fishing for a tournament, are you the type of guy that you need to sting a couple, or do you shake everything off?
No, I pretty much primarily shake a few things off, even though JJ over the weekend wouldn't say that. Because actually the biggest, a quick story, the biggest smallmouth I ever caught was in Chautauqua, practicing for a New York Fed tournament. And I'm flipping along with a tube on a grass edge, and I get to one little section, and I feel dunk, let the fish go away with it, dunk, let the fish go away with it. And I was like, man, I don't catch a lot of fish out of the grass here in Chautauqua. Everything, it's like a dock lake. It's got beautiful milfoil, whatever. I look at the guy that I was practicing with. I go, you know what? I'm going to ding the next one just to see what they are. And I set the hook, and this smallmouth comes flying out of the water. And I lobbed it in the boat because it happened so fast. And had I known how big it was, I would have never swung it. And I
Right.
swung it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this thing in the bottom of the boat. And I remember going, oh man, how big is this thing? Because, like you catch a 3.5 and then you catch like a 4.25 and you go, wow, that thing's huge compared to the 3.5. This thing was huge. It was 6'6".
Wow.
And yeah, I was just like, that's, you see. And then, needless to say, I went back 5 times, that a little weed line, never got another bite on it.
Yeah. Well, at least it was a smallmouth. I mean, chances of you catching that one again probably were slim.
Yeah, but Chautauqua's known for them giants. I mean, what if I should have stuck every freaking one of them?
Yeah, but that thing would have been swimming across the lake the next day.
Yeah,
if it was a largemouth, I would have been like, oh, why'd I stick it? But all right. So last question. How many hair jigs do you think you've tied over the course of your fishing career?
Billions.
Billions?
Or either way too many.
10,000? 5,000?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. I used to make them at Hank's when I was 15 years old. I got 40 years of making these things.
Wow. So yeah. This hair jig craze that started, I mean, maybe five years ago, they really got popular, or at least knowing about them. So you've been throwing those things for years though.
Yeah. I've never been really great at it.
It wasn't, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like my dad used to talk about a lot when I was younger, and back in the day, it was more of a cold water on the bottom type deal than it is kind of how they're using it now. Is that true?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of the guys really brought it to light, fishing like, those videos you watching them fish the St. Lawrence River.
Yeah.
Casting it and swimming it. Up here on Candlewood, they're not fishing it like that. You're fishing it on the bottom, trawling it.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you, I have no idea what they think it is. But I'm going back to like, late 70s, early 80s when we were making the hair jigs. We used to make them out of craft fur back then, but the craft fur was different. You can't get the same kind of stuff now. And, everybody's got their own version of it. For Arctic fox, if you can get good craft fur or pseudo fur, that works. And now everybody really got popular with the marabou. Years ago, guys used to fish the big puffballs of marabou with 101 pork frog. I mean, God, that was back then. And for largemouth, trimming a hair jig with like, it used to be a Mr. Twister Phenom, or just putting I still got some old Snatrix. It's just a little curly tail worm, and the largemouth used to eat it. Now everybody fishes them bare. And it just, it's funny because they make it sound like it's a big deal. It's really new. No, it's been around forever.
It's been around.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If you look at all this stuff has been around forever. I was talking to Zaleski. It's like, remember, not everybody's into shaky heads now, right? Everybody's got a shaky head design. There was a guy in Massachusetts, and I actually texted Rich because I couldn't remember the guy's name, Paul Devine, right? He used to have a jig that he made. Lead head with a little lead post sticking out of it, was a round head, and he bought these crazy hooks, and I think he got them in like England or something. And it was a flat eye hook back when nobody really had flat eye hooks. And you would stick the worm on the post, the nose of the worm, and then just Texas rig it. It was a freaking shaky head. That was like 1970 something.
Right.
Yeah, all this stuff, there's nothing new.
Yeah.
There's nothing new. The A-rigs, that's not new. We've been using them saltwater for years. It's just somebody made one that was small that you could throw. And like the only thing that I've seen in the last few years that's definitely different, and I can't remember anything that was like it, is the chatterbait, to be honest with you. Bladed jig. That was really the newest revelation. I mean, I don't care how you make a spinnerbait. A spinnerbait's a spinnerbait.
Yeah. So Frank, talk like what's up? Or do you actually sell jigs, or you just tie them for yourself and some buddies, or like?
Well, I got a group of guys that I buy, that I sell them to.
Okay.
I just, I do them as kind of like a favor most of the time.
Well, you used to sell them through a Tackle Supply Depot, though, right?
Yeah, Tackle Supply Depot. Yeah, because one of the reasons was you can't get a good one.
Yeah.
Just guys are starting to make them, and usually the good ones are ones that guys make themselves. But if you try to buy one, I mean, look online, look anywhere, look at, aside from Tackle Supply Depot, because they sell mine. But if you look at some of the other places, I mean, you can't find a true like finesse hair jig. You'll end up with these crazy little bucktails made in China, and it's just not the same. I know some guys like the bucktail, but really the old craft fur is what the true, like, I think hair jig was. I mean, guys will talk about, rabbit fur and all this other crazy fur. And if you look at the back of my package on the jig, it says chupacabra. But
El Chupacabra.
yeah, clearly that's a joke.
Can you send a care package up to the guys at Northeast Bass Fishing Podcast? A couple of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll tie some up.
I want some of those mob jigs actually. Those sound pretty good to
Oh,
me.
definitely. Yeah, I'll send you some up. Yeah, I started making a lot of that stuff because you just don't get it the way you want it.
Yeah.
You never
I've
get
got
the
a hair jig I
size
like
hook.
now that I found just randomly online. It's actually a steelhead company from Washington State, and
Yep.
seems like it's working. So
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like swimming the little marabous, I mean, and the guys are fishing them bare, but I mean, yeah, back then it was like the little 101 pork frogs, little tiny pork frogs. It was just like, it was like killer in the fall.
Yeah.
Killer in the spring.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. So what do you got going on this year? I know we were talking before we kind of recorded earlier a little bit about your tournament stuff this year. So what have you fished so far, and what do you got coming up? We probably got 10 minutes here to chat, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, well, finishing the Reynolds Trail, Cashin. I usually just do the Ticonderoga one. He does a great trail though. He draws a lot of boats, and I just kind of follow the one that I really like. I don't go to Oneida. Last year, was it last year, I think, or the year before, I fished Messina. He went out of the St. Lawrence just because I wanted to go back up to the St. Lawrence. But sticking with the Reynolds Trail, which is the old Northern Bass Supply Trail. Just a few opens and club tournaments around here. Haven't really jumped back into any of the old Ever Starts or I don't even know what they call them now. But I want to get back into some of the opens maybe next year. But work's been crazy busy. This pandemic, for my business, is like set it on fire.
Yeah.
Right.
It's been crazy good.
I just had a memory, Frank. I think that you were at one of the divisionals I was at in Sebago, maybe, and you were doing translation for the Spanish team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I've kept, as a matter of fact, I've kept in touch with a lot of the
That's pretty cool.
guys from Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah. They FaceTime me every once in a while. And I actually just hooked a guy up with a boat. We just shipped it out to Spain.
I remember one of those guys, like, might have been the second or third day of that tournament. I can't remember. Caught like a 7-pound largemouth out in like 40 feet of water fishing for smallies, and it was a big deal. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of the guys, I don't know. I'm gonna tilt this up. I'm gonna see if you can see. See that painting up there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that is from Cesar Pesaini. He's actually from a pretty accomplished artist in Spain.
Huh.
And that's actually a picture of me releasing a smallmouth from my GoPro. And he painted it for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and
cool.
he actually won. He was the top guy the 1 year for the Spanish team. Yeah,
wow.
It's a pretty the bass fishing out there is like hot. They love it. Them in Spain, Italy, and France. France is more walleye, I think. But man, yeah, a lot of the Italian guys and the Spanish guys.
That's funny, Chris. You remember that Frankie up there, because I remember like the first year I really got into tournament fishing is when I moved back to Vermont. It was like 2006, and the division I did the state team or whatever. I wasn't even here when they had the qualifier. They just needed people to go because Vermont's small. They're like, hey, do you want to go? I just joined the club. I was like, sure.
Yeah.
So I went down the Connecticut River. I think it was 2006. You'll probably know, Frankie, if that was 2006. But I remember like I was kind of newer to that tournament bass fishing bass fishing scene. I just remember at like the weigh-in, like everyone's talking about this from every state, this Frankie Geiner guy. You're like the mayor down there. Like, oh, Frankie, even guys on the Vermont team, like, hey, there's Frankie. Hey, there's Frankie. I was like, who's this Frankie Geiner guy? Like everyone knows this guy. Like I remember Ray Scott was there. Like it was you and Ray Scott were like the two most popular guys at that weigh-in. So that probably speaks to like.
Thank you. I appreciate it, but
that you're not, you know, obviously you're a good guy, but like you're you know, you've been around the sport for a while, and like everyone knows Frankie Geiner.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I still feel like the kid from Connecticut that fishes, but it really kind of hits you when like you go to New York Fed and you go, oh, by the way, you can go in the senior pool now. I was like, oh, great. I threw up in my mouth a little bit. I was like, that's not what I want to be.
Yeah, but man, you're still getting after it. Like if you fish in a tournament down, you know, I mostly just fish Champlain, and I know when you fish a tournament down Ticonderoga, like you're weighing in, like you're always worrying about is Frankie weighing yet? Because you're still catching them, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I had one good year back in 2016 was like ridiculous. That was probably my hottest year I've ever fished.
Probably you won a boat too.
Yeah, it was. No, actually, the next year was 2017.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? I miss like stuff like Foxwoods. I don't know if you guys remember the Foxwoods Trail.
I was a kid, you know, like 9, 10, 12, 11, 12 years old. My dad would travel. He would do the whole circuit. And it was like crazy competitive. It was 200 guys, Dave Wolak, all those guys were.
Wolak, yeah. The Victories fish with the
Lee Bailey. He had the Cavatron Buzzbait Company, you know.
Yeah, Lee Bailey. Yep. It was, that Foxwoods Trail was so well run and so well put together. And man, it's just a shame you don't have a good trail like that anymore. I mean, we've got good trails, but
it's just broken up. It's just watered down.
It's too spread out. Yeah, it's you're right. It's too spread out. But what he did with what I don't even, you know, I can't even remember what the entry fees were, but I won 2 boats with that. Eddie and I won 2 boats on the Hudson.
It'd be cool to like see I'd have to go back and see if my dad's got like the old results, but to see the names, you know, you have probably like Artie Singer and Jordan Paulo and like all these old like.
Oh yeah, Jordan and John.
Yeah.
Yeah. Artie doesn't fish. I mean, he fishes like a lot. I haven't talked to Artie in years.
Yeah.
But Zaleski, he used to fish with Joe Canale, who's a friend of mine who passed away a few years ago. He had cancer. Yeah, it's just like you see some of the names. Yeah.
So going back to names, I just want to touch on this real quick before we wrap this up. So obviously, Connecticut. So Brian Kerchal, you must have run in with him a few times. Did you have a relationship with him, or? Yeah,
actually, we met at the tackle shop. He came in. Actually, I remember when he came in with his girlfriend Susan, and yeah, we used to. I never got the chance to fish with him, but we did travel and do a couple of Redmans, you know, together. I mean, he was a non-boater in one of the Redman tournaments. I went down to the Potomac, and he rode with me down there. And just after he won the Classic, we were traveling at Santee, and we went to a couple of those invitationals, and then he passed away in December. Yeah, the week of my birthday, actually, in '94, the year after winning Classic. But yeah, it was fun. You know, he's another one that he was like the perfect package for this back then. He could speak well, and he got over a lot of like shyness to be able to speak well, you know, because he knew he needed to. This is what he wanted to do. And he was one of those kids that he just had it, you know. He'd get himself on fish, and you don't know why. This is a kid, when he won the Classic, never caught a fish on a buzzbait. Never even, I don't think he ever owned a buzzbait. You know, just craziness like that. It's just one of those natural things that he was just going to be good at it. And yeah, it's real strange. I really would have loved to see where he could have taken this. And I gotta be honest with you, I hope that nobody ever from the Federation wins the Classic. I want it to be Brian and Brian alone forever. And guys came close, you know. Prior to Brian, you had Danny Correa. I think he took a second.
Paul Mueller.
Yep, Dalton Bobo took second. Paul, I kind of want it to be his and his alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like 23 or something. He was like really young.
23
right?
years old.
Kind of crazy to think about.
Working at McDonald's, right, or something.
Ground round.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
At the ground round, I used to go up there, and his girlfriend worked there. She was a waitress and a hostess, and a bunch of people that we knew. So I'd go up there, we'd go eat and shoot, talk about fishing and stuff. Yeah, it was definitely strange. Just to give you an idea of the type of kid he was, like I don't know if he knew. I think he knew what he had done. And because he had a comment that he made to Rick Clunn, because Rick Clunn went to congratulate him when he was in line to weigh in. He didn't know he had won yet. And Brian told Rick, he says, the only fear is that I think I won it too soon. Like, he knows he wanted to do that. He knew that was the pinnacle, but he felt like I guess he didn't pay his dues enough. And I mean, I think that's pretty profound to be at 23 years old, that kind of frame of mind. And and just like, I remember, Dave Barnes.
Yeah, from Maine.
Yeah. Okay. I can't remember what invitational we were at, right? But we were struggling. Well, clearly all my invitationals I struggle. But Brian and I were down there, we're talking to Dave in the room, and he was rooming with Dave, and Dave's like yelling at Brian. He's like, talk to these pros. He's like, talk to them. This is after he won the Classic. He's like, they'll help you. They'll talk to you. Talk to these pros. And Brian's like, I don't know. Right? And I was like, Dave, you're talking to the pro.
Yeah.
He's the Classic champ.
The best, yeah.
Right? And it's like, and then Brian was like, yeah. It's like, he just didn't get it. I don't know. He was that humble. I don't think it sunk in. Yeah, but he was a really, he had the knack. I can't explain it. It's just like, you see some of these guys, like
good ones do.
Wheeler's probably another one.
Yep.
Look at Wheeler.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably don't like him for it, but you know what? He's accomplished everything you could possibly accomplish.
Yeah.
In this sport. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was really sad that he was taken away from us too soon. Because I think it would have been really cool to see where it could have gone.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been a lot of fun, Frank. We're like probably an hour and 20 in here, and it seems like we've been talking for 3 minutes. We could probably talk for another 6 hours. So
yeah, easy.
Just a lot of fun, and we really appreciate having you on, and appreciate your knowledge and your stories. And I don't want to speak for Tommy, but I know, like myself and probably a million people in New England, have a lot of respect for your longevity and what you've done in fishing over a lot of time. So again, just really thankful to have you on. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate all the kind words. It's funny because I don't see myself that way at all.
Good.
A lot of people do. Yeah.
And it's kind of like strange to hear it, to be honest with you, but I am really honored. And yeah, this is a lot of fun. I could sit here, like you said, talk for the next 2 hours about this stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do it again down the road. So
definitely.
Tommy, anything to wrap up here?
I guess my last question is, so going back to when you were 17, 18, starting to doing this now to, like I said, you're 55, so almost 40 years. Do you still have that same feeling morning of a tournament than right now as you did back then? Is it still the same exciting thing for you?
Yeah, sometimes I do. It's like certain things get me going. I'll tell you one thing. I forget who I was talking to this last weekend, and it's like, I wish I shook more. Remember like when you, like the first fish you ever caught that was like really big and you were like, I was like, man, I want to get that back. I do. I still feel it. It's just like, maybe you get conditioned to it and you're just like, it's still exciting to me.
I don't.
But,
I caught a 5-pound largemouth in a deep water fish in a little tiny $20 club tournament over the weekend, and I was shaking for like 3 minutes. And like catch a 4-pounder in a tournament for $100 grand, and like you don't even think about it. You're doing business. But when you catch a big one, it's still like it still gets to me, and I'm really thankful and glad that it does, because if it doesn't, then it's like, why are you doing it? You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, listen, I still enjoy fishing the club tournaments too. Yeah. I do that because it forces me to fish places that I wouldn't fish.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, you'd be on Thayer, you'd be on Plattsburgh all the time, you'd be at St. Lawrence. Yep. This forces me to go to Congamon, go to Zor, and it keeps your mind fresh. You still gotta, deal with different conditions and tough conditions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again, Frank, and best of luck the rest of the way this year, and maybe we'll have you on and down the road a little bit in the future and tell some more stories. So
yeah, well, maybe I'll try and win a good one, so that you have a reason to bring me on again.
wouldn't surprise us at all. So
yeah,
thank you.
So thanks again, and thanks to everybody for joining the 7th episode of the Northeast Bass Fishing Podcast presented by Thayer Marine, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.